Sabrina 2000s comic, issue 5. We start out with Harvey saying to Sabrina at the high school that he hears her aunts are chaperoning tonight. Her aunts, out of all the other adults in town. Harvey says they won't be able to dance together because with everything Sabrina will have to do, she'll be lucky to even hear music. Isn't it obvious she's suffering enough? Harvey calls her an overachiever with a smile, revealing to her that she signed herself up for tons of jobs. She's confused, and he directs her to the bulletin board by the vice principal's office. She's confused and says that her signature is on coat check and a whole bunch of other boring mundane stuff, when she never signed up for that stuff. The vice principal congratulates Sabrina for her school spirit, and Jem clearly is trying to cover up what she did because she compliments her. He says he'll get the key to the maintenance closet so that she can start mopping up the dance floor. If Sabrina wasn't an idiot, she'd just tell him she changed her mind right away. She'd screw-itty things. She shouldn't care. Even if she thinks she wouldn't be believed about someone forging her signature, she could still opt out of those jobs. I'd do that immediately. And the story would suck if she didn't. She tells Jem to stay out of this, and accuses her, and is too stupid to just brainwash her into admitting to what she did. And then Jem immediately stamps Sabrina's hand with a forgery of her signature, revealing her guilt right away. Why doesn't Sabrina run to the vice principal and show him the stamp on her hand to immediately get Jem in huge trouble? Jem stupidly reveals to her that she photocopied her signature and had a stamper made of it somehow. I wish I knew how. At least it's explained how she forged it. She says everyone will see Sabrina tripping over herself all night. And she whistles for Harvey, and he's absolutely fine with betraying Sabrina, simply saying that he's coming and walking away with her with a smile for no reason. Oh, he's a man, he can't help it. But by the 2000s, and in the most kiddie comic of them all, this really stands out as weird. He has no reason to like her. We see a panel where Sabrina turns Jem into an octopus, and while Salem's proud of her, Zelda giggles and says that she didn't actually do that. If this was the earlier comic Sabrina, she totally would've. If Sabrina had a brain, she would have immediately gotten out of this mess by showing the vice principal the stamp on her hand and quitting all those jobs. So this story looks like its plot is incredibly arbitrary. Sure, it's kinda interesting, but it's so mean that I don't really feel interested in it. Jem doesn't hate her for being an idiot. If Sabrina used magic, she'd be able to get out of the situation easily by just erasing her signatures and erasing everyone's memories of them. Sabrina says that Jem's got her doing 3 jobs at once. I feel like more than 3 jobs were listed. Sabrina's so stupid she can't even count, right? Hilda says that she likes her octopus idea. Wait, so now she has a distinct personality? Now she's the Hilda I know? This better last! Because before this, she was just being a clone of Zelda. Zelda nags her with her finger tediously pointed at her that Quigley frowns upon any of them using witchcraft. Wait, period? Ever? Kick out that anti-witch ass! Ugh. I'm thinking of him as immortal right now. Is he? If so, what kind of witches would let an anti-witch racist live in their house for no reason and pressure them into not using magic? Even in the cartoon, the audience finds him too smothering and controlling. Then why do they have this asshole? Where's Cousin Ambrose? There's better villains than this. It's already hard to believe that Hilda and Zelda are living together when they're sisters, not married. But it's even more weird and unbelievable that Quigley is living there too. You don't need 3 people to raise 1 child. Hilda says that thank God Quigley's out of town, and this is a question of family honor, arguing with her about something satisfying for once. She says Jem's gotta learn a lesson. No, she doesn't use magic on her. That'd be foreshadowed and exciting. She could turn her into an octopus for a bit. Instead, she casts a spell to let Sabrina be in 3 places at once. Okay, wouldn't people inevitably see more than one of her? Wouldn't that reveal magic? Or at least get someone to question and look into the sudden appearance of an identical twin of hers in a school she's not registered for? Maybe a part of the spell is also that anyone near one of them will be unable to question it? But then the comic won't have cheap, unfunny comedy where someone's weirded out at seeing more than one Sabrina at once. I would say that they'd keep all 3 Sabrinas in different rooms, and have an order that they'd never go together, but that'd be smart, and the same person could still go from one room to another while they're all in there. It seems out of character for one of the adults to cast a spell that could so obviously go wrong. Now the ants just look like hypocrites for not thinking of how this could go wrong. I'm pleasantly surprised that Hilda's being allowed to do this. Is this what the comics like when Quigley's not around? They're really allowed to have a plot like this? Can Quigley just have a piano dropped on him? We cut ahead to our time being wasted with Sabrina's rehearsal at home, as Sabrina takes Salem's coat. Then he indeed does react to the fact that he's seeing Sabrina again in front of the drinks. So why are they even considering doing it? If they know that magic always gets erased from mortal memory by spy witches, and so this is fine, that should be explained. Sabrina could just unsign herself and tell Harvey to dance with her anyways. Not reveal magic with this obvious charade that'll just be noticed by everyone. Instead of getting the hint from Salem's confused reactions, Hilda thinks that was perfect. So, what does chaperoning a dance involve? Is it literally just standing there and doing nothing? Couldn't they supervise the dance and help Sabrina out? At least Hilda tells the Sabrinas not to overlap. Zelda says that the last time they made duplicates was at the wedding of Henry VIII. Salem says not to bring that up in front of the children. Yeah, I guess because Henry VIII killed all of his wives because he was infertile. I guess a part of the duplication spell is making sure none of the duplicates won't exist past the time that they'll be used for. At the dance, Jem plans on going to the powder room and trashing it so that Sabrina will spend time cleaning it up. I really wish I knew why she wants to bully Sabrina in particular, because the only problem with Sabrina that I can find is that she's an idiot. If anything, wouldn't she be mean to smart people because they're considered nerds? But doesn't she think she's smart? Jem screams at seeing Sabrina in the powder room, who's acting nice to her when she clearly said this was going to be the worst night of her life. Because she's got every reason to be optimistic, I guess. She naturally tells her to stay away from her and runs out, asking how she got in there so fast. She'd figure out she had magical powers from this. If she knew there was something off about her, well, you can see it right here. She's too busy being scared of her to bully her. She screams at seeing her again, and she feels dizzy at the dance. Hilda says that the proper term is spell-shocked, and Zelda giggles. Okay, it's good that they actually approve of magic being abused on Jem. So they feel like real people. But it's also extremely confusing at this point, so I'm too confused and suspicious of how little time this is gonna last. I can't get enough of Jem being miserable. I'd never dream of being like someone who'd call Sabrina a bully for using magic on Libby. The writers clearly want you to cheer Sabrina on for this. You want bad guys to get punished. Harvey asks Jem if she wants to get a glass of punch, as I'm still baffled that this guy who's portrayed as an innocent, nice guy with a cheerful smile all the time isn't conflicted about betraying Sabrina at all. Sure, he's not kissing her, but he's still on a date with her. I wish it was explained that the only reason he ever gives Jem a chance is to use her for her wealth. But Jem's wealth isn't contributing here at all. Despite the fact that she was just terrified by Sabrina, Jem still confidently smirks and plans on complaining when Sabrina's not there serving punch. Okay, so this explains why she bullies her. Even if she is momentarily scared by the fact that she's clearly not a normal person, that fear wears off. She's left wanting revenge. She runs away screaming, and you'd think she'd attract attention from that. She's too panicked to fully explain herself. And the vice principal just guilts her because she didn't volunteer and she was running and screaming. Jem delusionally tries to convince herself that Sabrina did it with mirrors. Sabrina hands her a coat and she at least thanks her absent-mindedly. So she's a polite person when she's absent-minded. She should be like this all the time. She runs out of the school screaming with the coat on her base all of a sudden because I guess Sabrina put it there off screen. Harvey asks Sabrina if she's seen Jem, instead of immediately knowing where she is from hearing her scream. She did not annoy me when she looks sympathetic by being scared. It is good writing to have Jem do something awful first before being mistreated in the story. You need this so you'll feel like they're being punished for something instead of them being innocent in that story. So I guess my real constructive criticism isn't that Jem shouldn't have been shown bullying her at all, just because we already know she's awful, but instead, it should have been condensed as much as possible. But instead there was way too much focus on it. Sabrina should have just seen the bulletin board at the start of the story, and then it could cut ahead. Sabrina's aunts are happy to see her dancing with Harvey, but is that the real one? Or just a clone? And so the real Sabrina won't remember dancing with him and be cheated out of it anyways. Because the two duplicates want to dance with Harvey, there's a flash of light, and Hilda says that she's sending them back to the manufacturer. But she's the manufacturer, so she killed them? The story ends with Harvey telling Sabrina that she's a great dancer. That's nice, but it makes him seem like a different person entirely from the Harvey who casually dated Jem with no moral compass. We should have seen her say, "I'll pay you to go to the dance with me." In the next story, we see a panel shaped like a thought bubble cloud. Well, a teacher tells Sabrina that she's been warned about passing notes in class, and now he's gonna force her to write "I will not pass notes in class" 100 times for homework. Considering how awful American teachers can be, I guess he's allowed to make up that punishment that has nothing to do with the course. Sabrina got in a ridiculously exaggerated amount of trouble when she was just passing it from Harvey to Chloe. How's her teacher supposed to know that? He talked to her, which means he only looked when the note got to her. Sabrina desperately hopes that Zelda could write her teacher a note instead. Or Sabrina could just cast a spell to write that homework right away. I guess she can't focus for long enough to imagine more than one short sentence written on paper at a time. But repeatedly pointing to create one sentence multiple times would still be faster than writing. And couldn't she just brainwash the teacher into deciding not to punish her? Salem says that he spends all day setting up the ping pong table for him and Sabrina. So he actually does fun activities with her. Zelda says she's met her teacher, and for some reason because of that, she immediately assumes her teacher is right and sides against Sabrina. To be fair, if Sabrina was guilty, she would just lie and say the exact same thing she did last panel, but it's still shocking and infuriating to see her so-called aunt not side with her. Why can't the comic just show those three people as little as possible? Zelda says she's got a lot of laundry to wash and fold like an idiot instead of just using magic, and tells her to just write the assignment. Logically, Sabrina would just create a duplicate to do it for her, and brainwash her into agreeing to it. Or she could use magic to make the pen write it for her. Salem reveals that Zelda used a magical pen to write letters and pay bills on its own, but that was years ago before Sabrina's time, and now she uses the computer. Salem finds Zelda's pen, as Sabrina says that sounds too good to be true. It's almost like she's getting genre savvy that the writers always get jealous of her instead of letting her magic succeed. Logically, I don't see any reason why this would backfire on Sabrina. Unless they're gonna rip off a joke that the 70s comic already did twice, but with a pen. Salem's smart enough to even test it out. He tells it what to write, and it does it correctly. He even tells her that she can tell it to write something multiple times, and it'll never run out of ink. Is that really true? Can't Sabrina just go point at the teacher tomorrow to magically change his mind about wanting that note from her? How is making him nicer evil? No, that'd require a brain too. At least it's fun to think of the ways I'd use the magic. That's clearly wasted on her. But the comic shouldn't have had most of its magic left to my imagination. Sabrina tells the pen to write the sentence she wants 100 times. Your ping pong paddle awaits. It's a pen programmed to take orders from a new person right away when he didn't say write this in that panel. Then Sabrina and Salem play ping pong, but her bitch aunt interrupts them, shouting her full name, including her stupid middle name. She tells her to follow her. I was guessing earlier that someone would see the pen writing by itself in this horribly lifeless, unenjoyable story. Sabrina also pointed out that she wanted to get enough paper for it. I guess the bitch went out of her way to check on Sabrina to make sure that she was writing the stupid note. I wish Sabrina would just man up and use magic to change Zelda's mind and get her to leave her alone. Out of complete fucking nowhere, we see the pen writing on the walls instead of on the paper. Fuck this story. It blows. Because bullshit, Zelda reveals that she stopped using that pen because its numeral logic circuit fried and it multiplies any amount given to it by 1 billion. So a specific part of the spell is tied to a specific circuit? I assumed the spell was just on the pen, and it was physically a regular pen. Instead it's technology just so that it can fuck up for no reason. That was the definition of a Diabolus Ex Machina. Why did it need circuits? I was thinking that Sabrina could have done this with a regular pen or pencil. Why did anyone think they needed to rely on a specific pen, including Zelda herself? And if the writer thought to have Zelda say that she should have zapped it away a long time ago, then he should have known not to use this plot point because anyone would wonder why she hadn't. And therefore the entire thing is forced. It's immediately obvious that she should have actually been guilty of what she was being punished by the teacher for, meaning you're going to side with Sabrina. Then she gets mad at Salem for telling Sabrina about the pen that shouldn't still be here at all. Zelda is a bitch, and Sabrina says sorry just because she's in trouble. Zelda again is written to be an irredeemable bitch, telling her that she deserves to reap what she sows. She tells her to watch the writing off the walls and then do her homework, and tells Salem to write "I will not use magic frivolously" 100 times. The story ends with Sabrina telling Salem not to do any more favors for her. I guess he won't learn his lesson, so fuck him, and he doesn't know how to spell frivolously. It's hard not to make a typo of it when typing it. This story sucks. What made the writer think we wanted to see Sabrina doing this? Who would blame her for wanting to write that sentence a bunch of times with magic? Logically, what is keeping her from locking the door and using magic to have a regular pen write that note 100 times? What is keeping her from using magic to wash all of the walls with a single point? Would the bitch go check on her at some arbitrary time to make sure she's not using magic to do it too quick? In the next story, as I'm steaming just at seeing Zelda again, Hilda says she wants every throw rug in this house hung out on the line. Who dries clothes and stuff like that anymore? You're not Amish too? And I refuse to believe that the family's that poor that they can't afford a dryer. And since I don't know what their jobs are, I'm forced to assume they make money by selling the stuff they owned centuries ago, meaning they'd be rich and only live a middle-class lifestyle to keep Sabrina humble. That doesn't mean they have to not own a dryer. Sabrina doesn't lampshade this at all because no one has a brain in this comic. Oh, except Chloe, most of the time. Sabrina wonders if there's any rugs in the attic bedroom, and says that no one ever uses it, but she better check, and climbs into it with the ladder by herself. I guess some interesting plot twists will happen based on magic. She says there's a rug under that old trunk. Why can't you just call it a treasure chest? So what's magical? Either way, I thought it was established that every single magical item in the house was in one room. That made sense. I guess it's realistic that a few of the magical items would be forgotten because they're never used, and there's just so many of them. And maybe the only reason they're all still in the house is that they're there for Sabrina's magic homework. It turns out the rug talks and thanks her for taking the chest off him. I thought it'd simply be a flying carpet. Why would someone make a rug talk? If they're that lonely, they'd conjure up something that looks like a person instead. A duplicate of themselves, for example. Okay, it is kind of amusing that Sabrina's so used to being polite that she says, "You're welcome," and then realizes it's a talking rug and screams because she's not used to talking furniture. He floats and shakes off the dust on him, as I wonder why a chest was on him. I guess he's evil and was being punished. But then why wasn't he just zapped away? Why was he being abused by having a chest on him? Why didn't he immediately complain? At first I read his text bubble and thought he was saying he's Sabrina's great-great-grandmother. I assumed the chest covered its mouth so he couldn't talk. But he doesn't have a mouth. So he must speak with telepathy. Maybe the chest was put on him while he was sleeping. I assume he was put in that position for a reason. Sabrina realistically coughs and has dust in her eyes, and the carpet opens the window to give her some fresh air. That's compassionate. The carpet likes the feeling of that breeze, and wants to spend the day flying around the city. Who says tooling around to mean flying? And is he gonna have a name other than the carpet? That's how lazy this comic is. It's forced that he forces Sabrina to fly on him against her will. You'd think that right after she told him to stop, he would stop. He says it'll be fun, but she's upset. Wouldn't they have used magic to remove everything magical about him if they wanted to keep him there for being an heirloom? How is she too stupid to just warp away? Or use pixie powder to warp away? Then it turns out that Sabrina, in all the panic, somehow thought to look behind her and tells the carpet that he's fraying very badly from the high-speed flight. Somehow the carpet doesn't care and says he's going to Broadway. Well-written characters actually react to what people say to them. I guess he wants to be destroyed. Meanwhile, Hilda wastes multiple panels finding out what happened to Sabrina. She tells Zelda to break out the oversized broomstick and get out instead of just warping Sabrina back home. Why is the carpet this stupid? He just opened the window to give her some fresh air. Now he's just evil? Who would make a carpet like this? The traffic helicopter announcer reacts to Sabrina unrealistically. He somehow thinks drinking coffee makes you hallucinate. Does he drink it with LSD in it? No, he'd get caught. He casually tells people that because all the roads leading into the city are jammed, the best bet would be to fly on a magic carpet. No, he'd just immediately freak out at seeing Sabrina. Sabrina falls off the carpet as he doesn't care at all. I don't get it. Sabrina never did anything to him. Just in time, she lands in Hilda's arms. That was some bat's broom. I like that Hilda and Zelda call each other by short forms. It shows their bond, it makes sense. Somehow Sabrina feels bad for the crazy evil carpet for unraveling, while Hilda's actually relatable, saying to just let it unravel for trying to kill her not daughter. Just because Sabrina feels bad for it, which I did at first, Hilda uses magic to salvage it and make it the world's only flying washcloth. I guess a part of Hilda's spell on it is that it's not crazy evil anymore, as well as not unraveling, and will only obey what the family says. And Salem says that zooming around New York is cool, and Sabrina immediately agrees instead of saying that she hated it. Everything about this comic is stupid and impossible to take seriously. The Sabrina comics used to be good almost every time. They used to be tolerable. There's no excuse for the comics sucking this much. So this issue sucked. The first story, by Mike Gallagher, is about Jem forging Sabrina's signature by photocopying it and putting it on a stamp to make sure she signed up for all of the volunteer work at the school dance at once. So many problems with this all at once. I should really make sure that the summaries are really short, because I've already went over everything that doesn't make sense about the story. Nothing about the story makes sense. They're supposed to be witches. The second story is horribly frustrating because Sabrina wasn't the one who first made the note. She still did pass notes though, which was furthering a distraction in class, while the teacher needed all the students to be focused on his lecture. I get why I got mad at her, but still, this is such a petty thing to force her to write the same sentence 100 times for. I guess it's believable, but the fact remains that we were given no reason to care about this teacher to the point where we root for him punishing Sabrina severely for such a petty reason. She was just trying to do the right thing by helping out her friend. Although, she could have avoided this by keeping the note until the end of class and then passing it. What's obligating anyone to pass the note right away? Okay, so the story only happens because she's an idiot who does stuff mindlessly. She somehow thinks she needs to use a magical pen to write a sentence 100 times instead of just casting a spell on the pen of her own and avoiding the situation where it wrote the sentence too much because it's circuit fried. Why is it a circuit instead of just the side of the pen that has the spell? This story sucks. The third story is forced too. Hilda already knew the magic carpet heirloom was obnoxious, so she would have known it was prone to flying people against their will for no good reason. And she would have depowered it a long time ago. And this is her fault as well for saying to get every rug in the house on the line. And Sabrina would have just warped home immediately with pixie powder.